So here's the thing about professional wrestling that most people don't fully appreciate until they've been following it long enough to see patterns emerge. The best storylines, the ones that really matter and stick with you for years afterward, they don't just happen randomly. They are carefully constructed, meticulously planned, and when done correctly, they evolve in ways that keep you guessing while simultaneously feeling inevitable. And right now, sitting here trying to process the information that broke earlier this week about Cody Rhodes and the Royal Rumble, I'm experiencing that rare combination of excitement and disbelief that only comes when WWE decides to completely shift the trajectory of their biggest star. Let me paint you a picture of where we are right now. Cody Rhodes has been carrying the WWE Championship with the kind of pride and dignity that reminds you why that title matters in the first place. He finished his story at WrestleMania, defeating Roman Reigns in a moment that honestly made grown adults cry, myself included if I'm being completely honest. Since then, he's defended that championship against everyone who stepped up, putting on incredible matches that reminded everyone why he's considered one of the absolute best in the world at what he does. His reign has been everything you could ask for from a top champion: consistent excellence, meaningful feuds, and a genuine connection with the audience that you can't fake or manufacture. But here's where things get interesting, and honestly a bit frustrating if you've been paying attention to the whispers and rumors that have been circulating backstage. According to multiple sources, and this has been confirmed by people who actually know what they are talking about rather than just random internet speculation, Nick Aldis and Triple H have been in serious discussions about Cody's direction heading into the Royal Rumble. And the word that keeps coming up, the phrase that's being thrown around in these conversations, is new storyline. Not continuation of existing feuds, not a predictable path toward WrestleMania, but something genuinely new and unexpected. Now before I go any further, I need to address something that's been bothering me ever since I first heard about this. The Royal Rumble is supposed to be about creating stars, about giving someone that massive spotlight moment where they point at the WrestleMania sign and the entire wrestling world understands that something special is about to happen. For the current champion, the Rumble usually means finding out who your WrestleMania challenger is going to be, watching from backstage or ringside as 30 superstars beat each other senseless for the right to face you at the biggest show of the year. That's how it's worked for decades, and it's a formula that makes sense. Except apparently that's not the plan for Cody Rhodes this year. And the more I've dug into this, the more I've talked to people who have inside knowledge of WWE's creative direction, the more I realize that what they are planning is either going to be absolutely brilliant or completely insane. Maybe both. Probably both, knowing how Triple H operates when he's really invested in a storyline. I had a conversation last week with someone who works in WWE's creative department. I can't name them obviously because they'd lose their job immediately, but this person has been involved in some of the biggest storylines of the past few years. We met at this coffee shop in Stamford, completely by chance, and after some small talk about the current product, they leaned in close and said something that's been rattling around in my brain ever since. They said that Nick Aldis has been pushing hard for Cody to be involved in the Royal Rumble match itself. Not defending his championship on the same card, not cutting a promo about who might win, but actually competing in the Rumble as an active participant. Think about that for a second. The WWE champion, the man who should theoretically be above the chaos and uncertainty of a 30-person over-the-top rope battle royal, voluntarily entering the Rumble. It breaks every conventional piece of wrestling logic you can think of. Why would a champion put themselves through that kind of punishment when they don't need to? What possible motivation would drive someone to take that risk when they already have the most prestigious prize in the industry draped over their shoulder? And that's exactly why I think Triple H and Nick Aldis are considering it. Because it doesn't make conventional sense, and sometimes the storylines that break conventions are the ones that create the most memorable moments. Triple H has shown time and again since taking over creative control that he's willing to take risks, to subvert expectations, to trust that the audience is smart enough to appreciate storytelling that doesn't follow the same tired formulas we've seen 1,000 times before. The more I thought about this possibility, the more I started seeing how it could work, how it could actually be something special rather than just a gimmick for the sake of being different. Imagine Cody Rhodes standing in that ring surrounded by 29 other competitors, all of them gunning for him specifically because eliminating the champion would be the ultimate statement. Imagine the story you could tell over the course of that match, with Cody fighting tooth and nail not just to survive but to prove that he's not afraid of anyone, that being champion doesn't mean hiding behind the safety of solo title defenses. My friend Tommy, who's been watching wrestling even longer than I have, thinks this whole idea is completely ridiculous. We got into a pretty heated debate about it the other night at his apartment while we were watching old Rumble matches on the network. He kept arguing that champions shouldn't be in the Rumble because it diminishes the championship, makes it seem less important if the person holding it is willing to risk everything in a match they don't need to be in. And I get his point, I really do. There's a logic to keeping the champion separate, letting them be this elevated figure that people aspire to reach rather than just another body in a chaotic multi-person match. But here's where I pushed back on Tommy's argument, and where I think WWE might be onto something genuinely interesting. What if Cody's participation in the Rumble isn't about the championship at all? What if it's about something deeper, something more personal that makes his involvement necessary from a character perspective rather than just a booking decision? Triple H has always been a master of long-term storytelling, of planting seeds months in advance that eventually grow into something meaningful. What if this new storyline they are promising isn't just about the Rumble itself, but about what Cody's participation in the Rumble represents? Nick Aldis has been doing an incredible job as SmackDown general manager, and one of the things that's made his tenure so successful is his willingness to make bold decisions that prioritize compelling television over safe, predictable booking. He's the kind of authority figure who feels legitimate because his decisions actually impact storylines in meaningful ways. If Aldis is the one driving this idea of putting Cody in the Rumble, you know there's going to be a story-based reason that makes sense within the context of everything that's been happening. And speaking of everything that's been happening, let's talk about the Bloodline situation for a minute because I think it's directly connected to whatever WWE has planned for Cody at the Royal Rumble. The ongoing war between Cody and various members of the Bloodline has been one of the defining elements of his championship reign. Solo Siko's faction has made it their mission to make Cody's life miserable, to prove that even though Roman Reigns is gone, the Bloodline's dominance continues. Jacob Thatcher has been particularly aggressive in targeting Cody, leading to that absolutely brutal confrontation we saw recently on SmackDown. So here's my theory, and I want you to hear me out on this because I think I might be onto something. What if Triple H and Nick Aldis are setting up a scenario where Cody enters the Royal Rumble specifically to confront the Bloodline on his own terms? Think about it. The Bloodline has been attacking him in situations where he's outnumbered, where the odds are stacked against him, where they can use their numbers advantage to inflict maximum damage. But in the Royal Rumble, everyone's fighting everyone. The chaos of that environment could actually work to Cody's advantage, allowing him to pick off Bloodline members one by one as they enter the match. The storytelling potential there is enormous. You could have multiple Bloodline members in the match at strategic intervals, creating these mini-confrontations within the larger context of the Rumble itself. Cody could eliminate Tamar Tonga, then Tonga Loa, then Solo Siko, systematically dismantling the faction that's been tormenting him for months. And then, at the end, when it comes down to the final few competitors, you could have Jacob Thatcher enter as a late number, setting up this climactic showdown between him and Cody with the stakes impossibly high. But wait, because here's where it gets even more interesting. If Cody is in the Rumble as a participant, that means his championship presumably isn't being defended on that card, which opens up questions about the title picture heading into WrestleMania. Does someone else win the Rumble and choose to challenge whoever holds a different championship? Does the Rumble winner get to choose which champion they want to face, creating this scenario where Cody has to worry about multiple potential challengers? The possibilities are endless, and each one creates its own set of intriguing story opportunities. I was talking to my sister about this yesterday. She's not even that into wrestling, mostly just watches the big events with me because we have a tradition of ordering pizza and making an evening of it. But even she could see the appeal of this concept when I explained it to her. She said it reminded her of those heist movies where the main character voluntarily walks into the most dangerous situation possible because that's the only way to accomplish what they need to accomplish. That comparison actually stuck with me because it's kind of perfect. Cody Rhodes walking into the Royal Rumble as champion would be him walking into the lion's den by choice, accepting maximum danger because the payoff is worth the risk. Nick Aldis made some comments recently in an interview that I think support this theory. He was asked about his philosophy as SmackDown general manager, and he said something about how the best television comes from putting people in situations that force them to reveal who they really are under pressure. He talked about how anyone can look good when circumstances are favorable, but true champions prove themselves when everything is working against them. That sounds an awful lot like someone laying the groundwork for a storyline where the champion voluntarily puts himself in the most chaotic, unpredictable environment possible. Triple H has been even more cryptic when asked about Cody's future, which honestly isn't surprising given his history of keeping major plans close to the vest. But there was one interview he did with a sports outlet where he mentioned that the Royal Rumble this year was going to feature some surprises that longtime fans wouldn't see coming. He specifically used the phrase challenging assumptions about how we book our top stars, which felt like a pretty direct hint that something unconventional is in the works. The wrestling media has been absolutely rabid trying to figure out what this all means. Every dirt sheet and insider source has their own theory about what WWE is planning. Some think Cody might enter the Rumble and win it himself, creating this bizarre scenario where the champion wins the right to challenge for their own championship. Others speculate that he'll enter the match but get screwed over by the Bloodline, losing his spot in some controversial fashion that sets up a bigger storyline down the road. A few people even think this whole thing is a work, that WWE is deliberately leaking false information to throw people off the real plan. Personally, I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle of all these theories. WWE under Triple H has shown a willingness to mix traditional storytelling with unexpected swerves, creating this balance between giving fans what they want and surprising them with things they didn't know they wanted. Whatever they are planning for Cody at the Royal Rumble, you can bet it's been thought through extensively, debated in creative meetings, and refined to maximize both the immediate impact and the long-term storytelling potential. One aspect of this that hasn't gotten enough attention is how it affects the other competitors in the Royal Rumble match. If Cody Rhodes is indeed a participant, that changes the entire dynamic of the match for everyone else involved. Suddenly you're not just fighting to win a spot at WrestleMania, you're fighting in the same match as the WWE Champion, which elevates the prestige and importance of every elimination and near elimination. Young up-and-coming stars would have the opportunity to shine by going toe-to-toe with the champion. Established veterans could use confrontations with Cody as a way to re-establish their credibility. I keep coming back to this idea of legacy and what drives someone like Cody Rhodes at this point in his career. He's already accomplished the main goal that brought him back to WWE. He finished his story, won the championship his father never could, and cemented his place in wrestling history. So what motivates him now? What's left to prove? I think that's the real question Triple H and Nick Aldis are trying to answer with this new storyline, whatever it ends up being. Maybe the answer is that Cody needs to prove he's not just a champion who got lucky or who succeeded because of a compelling narrative. Maybe he needs to show that he can thrive in absolute chaos, that he can walk into the most unpredictable match of the year and not just survive but dominate. That would be a hell of a statement, the kind of defining moment that transforms a good championship reign into a legendary one. There's also this element of fan expectation that plays into all of this. Wrestling fans have gotten pretty good at predicting WWE's booking patterns over the years. We know how they typically build to WrestleMania, we know the formulas they tend to follow, we know which wrestlers they favor and how they like to structure major events. But Triple H has been actively working to subvert those expectations since taking over, to keep people guessing even when they think they have everything figured out. Putting Cody in the Rumble would absolutely accomplish that goal because it violates every conventional wisdom about how you book your top champion. My buddy Jake, who runs a pretty popular wrestling podcast, reached out to me this morning asking if I'd heard anything concrete about the Cody situation. He's been trying to get confirmation from his sources, but everything he's hearing is contradictory and confusing. Some people are telling him it's definitely happening, others are saying it's just one idea among many that's being considered, and a few are insisting the whole thing is completely fabricated by wrestling media desperate for clicks. That level of uncertainty and speculation is actually perfect from WWE's perspective because it keeps people talking and guessing right up until the actual event. The business side of this decision is worth considering too. The Royal Rumble is already one of WWE's biggest events of the year, consistently drawing huge buy rates and generating massive social media engagement. But adding the intrigue of the WWE Champion being in the match itself, that's a marketing dream. You can build entire promotional campaigns around that concept, create video packages exploring why Cody would make this decision, generate debate and discussion across every platform. It's the kind of story that transcends the wrestling bubble and gets mainstream sports media attention. I remember watching the Royal Rumble back in the day when champions occasionally appeared in the match under specific storyline circumstances. It was rare, which made it feel special when it happened. There was always this sense of danger and excitement because you knew the champion was taking a huge risk being in there with so many competitors. WWE has mostly moved away from that approach in recent years, keeping champions separate from the Rumble to maintain clear storyline divisions. But maybe it's time to bring that unpredictability back, to remind people that anything can happen in WWE. Triple H has talked extensively in interviews about his philosophy regarding risk-taking in creative. He said that playing it safe might protect you from major failures, but it also prevents you from achieving major successes. The biggest moments in wrestling history, the ones people remember decades later, almost always involved someone taking a creative risk that conventional wisdom said was too dangerous or unconventional. Stone Cold driving a beer truck to the ring? Risk. Mankind getting thrown off the Hell in a Cell? Risk. Centimeter Punk's pipe bomb promo? Definitely a risk. All of those moments worked because the people behind them believed in the idea strongly enough to push past the doubts and object irons. Is putting Cody Rhodes in the Royal Rumble match the same level of creative risk as those examples? Maybe not quite, but it's definitely in that spirit of doing something unexpected because the potential payoff is worth it. And with someone like Nick Aldis championing the idea on the SmackDown side of things, you know there's going to be strong storytelling to support it rather than just doing it for shock value. The other wrestlers' reactions to this development would be fascinating to see. Can you imagine being in the Rumble match and seeing Cody Rhodes music it, knowing that the WWE champion just entered the ring with you? Some competitors would see it as the ultimate opportunity, a chance to make a name for themselves by eliminating the champion in front of millions of viewers. Others might view it strategically, recognizing that working together to eliminate Cody first could improve their own chances of winning. The layers of strategy and psychology that could be explored are virtually endless. There's a part of me that wonders if this whole thing is connected to Drew McIntyre somehow. Their recent 3 Stages of Hell match was incredible, but it ended controversially with Jacob Thatcher's interference costing Cody the victory. Drew won, but everyone knows the circumstances were tainted. What if the Royal Rumble becomes the venue where Drew and Cody continue their rivalry in a different context? What if Drew is also in the match, creating this scenario where they have to navigate their personal issues while also dealing with 28 other competitors? The booking possibilities just keep multiplying the more you think about them. You could have Cody and Drew temporarily working together to deal with the Bloodline members in the match, recreating that old enemy of my enemy is my friend dynamic that always creates great drama. Then once the Bloodline is eliminated, they could turn on each other, settling their business in front of the largest possible audience. The storytelling practically writes itself, which is probably exactly why Triple H and Nick Aldis are considering it. I've been checking social media constantly since the news started leaking about this potential storyline, and the fan reactions have been all over the place. Some people are absolutely loving the idea, praising WWE for thinking outside the box and creating something fresh and unexpected. Others are skeptical, worried that it diminishes the championship or creates booking complications that will be difficult to resolve satisfactorily. And then there's a contingent of fans who think the whole thing is being blown out of proportion, that Cody will just have a normal title defense at the Rumble and all this speculation is for nothing. Honestly, I understand all those perspectives because I've cycled through each of them myself over the past few days. When I first heard about this possibility, my immediate reaction was excitement because it sounded different and bold. Then I started thinking about the potential problems and complications, which made me more cautious. Now I've landed in a place where I'm just genuinely curious to see what they actually do, trusting that Triple H and his creative team have thought this through more thoroughly than any of us can from the outside looking in. Nick Aldis' track record as general manager gives me a lot of confidence in whatever decision gets made. He's proven himself to be someone who understands both the business side of wrestling and the creative side, balancing the need for compelling storytelling with the practical realities of running a major wrestling brand. If he's pushing for Cody to be in the Rumble, there's definitely a well-reasoned argument behind it that goes beyond just wanting to do something shocking. The timing of all this is interesting too. The Royal Rumble is happening at a point in the calendar where WWE needs to start building toward WrestleMania, which means every decision made now has ripple effects that will be felt for months. Whatever happens with Cody at the Rumble will directly impact his WrestleMania program, which means they can't afford to make a mistake here. The stakes are legitimately high from both a creative and business perspective. I keep thinking about what my wrestling journalism professor said back when I was in college studying sports media. He always emphasized that the best stories come from characters making difficult choices that have real consequences. Easy choices don't create drama. Safe decisions don't generate emotional investment. If Cody Rhodes voluntarily enters the Royal Rumble despite being champion, despite having everything to lose and seemingly little to gain, that's a difficult choice with significant consequences. That's the foundation of compelling storytelling. There's also something beautifully full circle about Cody potentially being in the Rumble match. He returned to WWE at a Royal Rumble, making his shocking comeback in a moment that wrestling fans will be talking about forever. If his story arc now involves him entering the Rumble as champion, completing this journey from surprise entrant to the man everyone is trying to eliminate, that's the kind of poetic storytelling that Triple H has always excelled at creating. The production possibilities for this scenario are incredible too. Imagine the video packages WWE could create leading up to the Rumble, splicing together footage of Cody's journey with philosophical questions about what it means to be a fighting champion. Imagine the commentary team building the drama as Cody's entrance number approaches, speculating about whether he'll actually go through with it. Imagine the roar of the crowd when his music hits and he walks down that ramp, not to observe or cut a promo, but to actually compete. Wrestling is at its best when it creates these moments of genuine uncertainty, when even smart fans who think they have everything figured out don't know what's going to happen next. The Royal Rumble has always been perfect for that because of its inherent unpredictability, but adding the WWE champion to the mix elevates that uncertainty to another level entirely. Whatever Triple H and Nick Aldis have planned for Cody Rhodes at the Royal Rumble, whether it's him entering the match itself or some other creative direction we haven't even considered yet, you can bet it's going to be memorable. They've promised a new storyline, a fresh direction, something that takes Cody's championship reign into territory we haven't seen before. And based on everything WWE has delivered since Triple H took over creative, I'm inclined to trust that they know what they're doing. The Royal Rumble is just a few weeks away now, and the anticipation is building to almost unbearable levels. Every SmackDown episode feels like it might contain the next piece of the puzzle, the next clue about what WWE has planned. Nick Aldis' decisions as general manager are being scrutinized more carefully than ever. Cody's promos are being analyzed for hidden meanings. The wrestling world is collectively holding its breath, waiting to see what happens next. And that's exactly how it should be. This is why we love professional wrestling, why we invest so much time and emotion into following these stories. Because when it's done right, when creative people are empowered to take risks and tell compelling stories, wrestling can create moments and memories that stay with you forever. Cody Rhodes' journey has already given us so many of those moments, and if Triple H and Nick Aldis deliver on their promise of a new storyline at the Royal Rumble, we might be about to witness the next chapter in what's already been an incredible championship reign. So to everyone watching WWE Frenzy, stay tuned because this story is just getting started. The Royal Rumble is going to answer some questions and probably create a bunch of new ones. Whatever happens, it's going to be worth watching, worth discussing, worth getting excited about. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of our coverage as this develops, because something tells me we're going to have a lot to talk about in the coming weeks.